The core issue surrounding Tiffany Hayes and Caitlin Clark has nothing to do with trash talk or standard on-court tension. Players exchange words. They confront each other. Every single night, competitors attempt to mentally break their opponents. That dynamic has been a staple of basketball forever. However, when a dispute transitions from the hardwood into space involving real-world danger, the public perspective shifts completely. That is the exact moment this narrative took a turn. During the Indiana Fever's victory against Golden State, Tiffany Hayes and Caitlin Clark engaged in a fiery sequence that initially seemed like typical basketball passion. Hayes was chirping, attempting to rattle Clark, playing physical defense, and trying to break her focus. That is standard practice. Athletes do it constantly. And Clark answered exactly how elite players do. She buried a deep jumper and barked right back. Audiences loved it because it represents pure competition and sportsmanship, the exact type of sequence that goes viral online. Yet, the post-game aftermath is when the situation truly erupted. Fans began debating online, and as always, social media descended into immediate pandemonium. We all recognize that pattern. You have typical fans reacting to the game itself, mixed with individuals who push boundaries far too far. That is a reality for every sport and every prominent athlete. According to documented posts that began spreading online, Hayes engaged with messages that crossed the line from basketball talk into comments suggesting off-court violence directed at Caitlin Clark. One specific message reportedly made reference to individuals who were prepared to take action on her behalf away from the arena. Hayes subsequently replied in a manner that many observers interpreted as affirming or amused, utilizing phrasing that instantly placed her at the center of the dispute. This is the exact detail where I believe onlookers are missing the true point. Certain people are attempting to label this as a standard basketball feud. Others are dismissing it as minor internet theater. But those concepts are completely different. Exchanging insults during a matchup is basketball. Playing aggressive defense is basketball. Trying to mess with an opponent's psychological focus is basketball. An online interaction involving statements about physical harm away from the game introduces an entirely separate issue. Once that threshold is crossed, it ceases to be a simple matter of two athletes competing. Instead, the public begins raising questions regarding personal accountability, the power of a digital platform, and the regulatory expectations of the league. It is crucial to clarify a point that frequently gets buried when emotions peak. No one is claiming Hayes directly made a personal threat toward Caitlin Clark. That is not what the recorded evidence shows. The problem people responded to was her public interaction with commentary that detailed violence against a fellow player. That is the precise reason this transformed into a major headline. Whether an individual views that digital interaction as genuine, sarcastic, thoughtless, or merely a poor lapse in judgment does not alter why the public backlash was so intense. Context is everything here. Caitlin Clark has previously navigated documented security threats, including stalking incidents that required law enforcement intervention. Consequently, the public is not evaluating this scenario in isolation. They are processing it through the lens of that history. I believe that is why fans immediately demanded a reaction from the WNBA. It wasn't because Clark made a basket, nor because Hayes talked trash, or because two competitors had a heated moment. People spoke out because the boundary separating athletic intensity from personal safety was suddenly compromised. Now, public attention shifts squarely toward the league's leadership. This is where the issue of regulatory consistency takes center stage. The WNBA recently issued a fine to Stephanie White for making public statements that questioned referee decisions. That disciplinary action was swift, public, and decisive. Now, observers are looking at the current dilemma and posing a very basic question. If criticizing officials triggers an immediate penalty, how will this situation be handled? To be precise, these two scenarios are not identical. Airing grievances about officiating and interacting with online commentary that references violence are entirely distinct matters. However, that contrast is precisely why people are demanding answers. Audiences are trying to decipher which behavioral standards the league prioritizes most. When an organization penalizes one action instantly but hesitates on another, the public begins drawing its own conclusions. Whether that judgment is fair or unfair, it is the current reality. This is highly significant because the WNBA is operating on a completely different level than it was just a few years back. The stage is larger. The fan base is broader. The financial stakes are higher. There is increased media scrutiny and heightened expectations. Everything gets magnified. As sports leagues expand, every organizational choice naturally carries far greater consequences. Fans are no longer just watching the action on the court. They are evaluating how corporations manage crises. They are observing whether regulations are enforced uniformly, whether athlete protection is prioritized genuinely, and whether emotional outcries, player fame, or media pressure influence the final results. Furthermore, there is another element to this situation that requires analysis. Social media has evolved into one of the most unpredictable dimensions of contemporary sports. Modern players are no longer viewed strictly as athletes. They are corporate brands and prominent public figures. A single brief online engagement can transform into a national news package within minutes. An action that may have felt like an informal reply is instantly turned into digital screenshots, media headlines, televised debates, and relentless internet commentary. Once that momentum builds, managing the public perception becomes virtually impossible. Onlookers also noticed another reported detail in this sequence. Hayes was allegedly blocking users who criticized her online as the controversy gained traction. Now, whether one supports the choice to block followers is an entirely separate argument. Professional athletes endure an overwhelming amount of online harassment daily, and no one should minimize that reality. However, fans viewed that specific reaction as a lack of accountability, interpreting it as an attempt to dodge the issue rather than confront it directly. Once again, public perception carries immense power. When the public believes an individual is hiding from criticism, their collective voice typically grows even louder. That brings us to the current moment. The actual basketball game has been completely overshadowed. A victory for the Fever transformed into a massive social media scandal. A moment of intense court competition shifted into a debate over behavioral rules. At this stage, everyone is waiting to see if the league will release an official statement. Because regardless of whether people defend Hayes, stand with Clark, or believe this entire event is being completely over-examined, the overriding issue remains the same identical question echoing throughout the basketball world.